mental notes. So there's nothing that's come up so far. I was thinking, there was one thing. I like this to that. That was cool. That's the only thing I found while I've been sitting here that inspires anything. So what I might do in that situation is then just keep watching TV, you know, and just keep picking away at it. And then I try to put together a rudimentary form, and then I record the demo in a very basic way for this third type of writing. I will put down this guitar with a click track, and I'll double it so it has the impression of being more intentional. And then I print it onto my phone and I listen to it when I'm driving around. So my phone right now, I mean, I got tons of ideas on there. Just, do we have an 1/8" cable or something? Or I can just put it up to the phone, or this thing, whatever it is. Oh, it's from Trace. Website. Wow on Twitter. Okay, let me just see what she sent. 2 seconds. Oh, I shouldn't do that. How Mongolians cut watermelon. Anyway, okay, so I'll go to my demo file here. Okay, so I'll give you an idea of what my demos are like in the really early stages of it here. So I call this batch 2. So 70s vibe, I call this, right? It's like, and so for vocals on something like this, I'll mumble them. So right? And then what else we got? See, alpaca lip ear. Right? See. Oh, right. That one's bullshit. Like just acoustic. This one is. Bork is the next one. What's Bork? Okay. Broken, right? This one's cool. I like this one. I'm going to use this one day. And this one is creepy drum, but the point, dude, it's just endless shit. Like it's just. See, it's just a click track and the thing I was listening to on the right, and Doom. Let's see what Doom is. Enya. But it's just. And I know this. So we ride. But anyway, it's just endless. It's just endless shit. So the other, shut up. The other way that I tend to write as well. Now this has happened with a lot of songs in my catalog. Ia for one, Awake, Effervescent, the first song off of Epicloud. I'll dream it. So I'll have a dream, and in the dream is a song like completed, and then I wake up and I'm like, oh fuck, that one hasn't been written yet. And so what I do is I sing it into my phone and I mail it to myself and go back to sleep. In fact,
she hates it when I do that.
I'll show you this. And so I've got it under voice message. Let's see how this works. Voice memos. All right. Is this one? Is this one? Verse. I have a guitar by my bed. Like dead asleep.
Pre-chorus. With a high octave. Yeah, pre-chorus.
And then when I wake up, it's like message from Devin. I'm like,
yeah. So, your wife
I hate you though.
Yes.
30 years?
She must be wearing earplugs, surely.
Oh, we haven't slept in the same bed. We haven't slept in the same bed for maybe 12 years. It's been fucking amazing. I hate sleeping in the same, other than conjugal visits, like, fuck. It's like, you know, and it's like, I mean, sex is so crazy too, and it's like, you know, and that, I like being in a relationship as well, because like the acquisition of like sexual contact as just like, as a hobby, like, are you kidding me? Like, it's a horror show. And in fact, I'm so horrified by like my humanity and sex in general that it's like, having somebody that doesn't make me feel absolutely ridiculous about the lizard brain is like a real benefit. But when my son was born, I was like, can we just like not sleep in the same bed now? And she was like, oh, fuck yeah. So yeah, it's like I've got my own little room. There's like 12 things in there that I can maintain in my own obsessive, terrified way. And I can roll around and fart and like wake up in the middle of the night and do that. You know what I mean? And I highly recommend it. It is a marriage saver as far as I'm concerned, right? No? Yes? Oh, sorry. Really? Yeah. But you still did that thing on Wednesday night, right? You know what I mean? It's like, you want a back rub?
After
you know that one, right?
After Futurama.
She's like, sure, back rub, right? Like, oh, what's this? How'd that get there?
I've fallen and I can't get up.
Yeah, that's exactly. All right, so yes, that is the way that I write. Right? And I think that ultimately my profound uncomfortableness with being human is what has allowed me to continue to have things to write about. And it's only been recently where I've made the decision to myself that no, not only are you human, but you are incredibly human. And that has actually helped in terms of the writing process as well, because I think I've just been so embarrassed of myself on so many levels, like for whatever reason, for like doing what I'm doing right now and just rambling and talking and, or, you know, any of these things, to the point where anytime I've written music that is unequivocally me, I've been horrified by it, because I'm like, oh, that's too real. It's too who I am. And so I've typically covered that up with self-deprecation and also some sort of either metaphor or analogy, like Ziltoid or whatever, where I feel like I can get away with saying all these things without actually having to say it. But lo and behold, people realized that it actually wasn't an alien. It was actually just, I know, it's crazy, right? So with Empath, it's the first time that I've actually been comfortable enough just to be like, fuck it, here it is. And as a result, it is like death metal, and then musical theater, and then meditational, and then prog. And the first song that we're releasing next week, oh, that's weird, major? That's all right. I still like that. Yeah, I like that. What we're talking about. Musical theater, right? So this record has it all on there, and it's very naked for me in a way, and it's super intense. And so the first song we're releasing is called Genesis, and it is basically 6 songs in one. And I think for people who are expecting it just to be like, you know, storm bending or something like that, it may be very off-putting. But I figured that it's best just to get it out of the way. It's like, look, this is going to be different than it was at one point, and I'm confident with it in the sense that I'm okay with myself on there. So writing music, that's how I do it, right? And I do a lot of this, just talking, right? But I know I've got this internal thing that's saying, as much as I like this, it's only a passing note, and I don't have any burning need to pursue it, so I'll probably let that one go. Another question? Yes, sir?
You were talking about dreaming about music. When you have fever, do you happen to dream more about music?
Oh, yeah.
I haven't had a fever in a long time. I had Indian last night and shit myself a new asshole today. Like it was crazy. Just bombs over Tokyo, and I got no music from that either. But it's been a long time since I've had those like Pink Floyd type fever dreams, right, where your hands are big and you know everything's like. Last time I did, I think I was maybe about 14 years old, and I was listening. And it's funny you bring that up. I was listening to Worldwide Live by the Scorpions, which was this sort of shitty live record they put out in like 1985. And because I had a fever, the echo of the guitar inspired me to do the sound that I have now. It was like kind of a hallucinatory experience where I interpreted what I was hearing from the album as they were playing in front of like 5 million people or something. It was just such a... Oh, And as a result of that, the second single that we're putting out from Empath is called Spirits Will Collide, which is an Enya song. It's Enya. But I've always wanted to make a heavy version of like an Enya thing. So I did, and it's really what you would expect from that combination of events. But I went to Serbia to do the video, and they said, what's the video going to be? I was like, I want to make this. We only got 15 grand, so we can do what we can. But I said, I want this to be a video that makes it look like the biggest concert ever made ever. And I said, I want elephants to be playing the drums. I would like a gorilla playing the bass. I'd like to have a 1,000-person choir. I want to have 5 million people in the audience and 1 billion people in the audience. I want the speaker array to be 4 planets that are over top of the moon. So for 15 grand, it might end up looking really, really shit. But it's like. But the idea was to make something that represented that sort of epic thing that's in my head. That, well, I mean, it's not going to happen. We're not going to play for 1 billion people with elephants playing drums.
Oh, maybe.
But in my mind, in my mind. So that's what the video is going to be, and it all stems from the fever dream that I had listening to the Scorpions, right? So it's been a long time, yeah. I haven't gotten a flu shot in years either, so maybe there's something to do with the fact that I'm just healthy as a horse.
You must be the only person who leaves NAMM not getting ill.
I did last year.
Oh, you did?
Yeah, but this year I made a conscious. I went with Che and we had a good time, but I made a conscious effort not to pick my nose.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, NAMFAX is.
Well, picking your nose, man. He's shaking hands with people and going up to the second knuckle. There's no way you're gonna.
I literally found out about that the other day. That like people get flu on the tube because they hold the bars and then they pick their nose. I had no idea if it was about touching the face. It does it.
It was hard too.
Yeah.
To not pick.
Oh
my
man.
nose because I'm in there. Yeah.
Second knuckle.
I'm just going, man.
Yeah.
It's like I feel something move in the back of my skull. Another question? Yes, sir.
2 questions. Do you use pitch correction?
Yes.
If so, how much?
Not excessively. And the way that I use it is because the vocal tracks in the template, I have 4 harmony tracks set up. And those harmony tracks consist of 4 tracks each. And I've got it set up so there's a vocal input and then 4 tracks labeled V1, V12, V13, V14, and then an auxiliary that gets bused to that has a compressor and a de-esser on it, and then an auxiliary that sends it to the echo. And so if I have a harmony, put 4 of them, put 4 of them, put 4 of them. For those ones, what I do is I do this plugin called Vocaline, and I go through the first one and it lines up the transients so the S's and T's are all together. Then I export it from the beginning and I bring it into Melodyne, and then I just basically hit select all and then do Apple Option P, and what that does, it just goes boink and kind of puts it into, just kind of smooths out the pitch. And the effect of that is that really kind of synth-like thing. On my lead vocals, I will do the same sort of Option P to it sometimes, depending on how naked it is, right? When I listen back to some of the stuff when I first got Melodyne, it's like I went overboard on it. Key was the first time that I used it. And I remember, Addicted. And it was like, I remember hearing EA in hindsight. It's like, we don't even understand, right? And at the time, I thought I was doing myself a favor with it, but now I can hear it. So it's about being more selective with it. But I do enjoy it. I like it a lot. Yeah.
Second question is, I know you've mixed and produced for other people before. Are you going to do that?
Fuck no. I hated that. And it wasn't that I hated the bands. It's just, whatever I choose to do, I'm going to get obsessed with. It's just how I function. And when you are obsessed with people that you can not entirely choose the social interaction, and if you're prone to absorbing people, what ended up happening for me is I would find myself in situations with people, lyrics, music that I didn't either agree with or I felt was like psychologically really exhausting. But in order to get it right, which I had committed to do, I'd have to get deep into these things, like Christian heavy metal or like black metal or any of these things. I'm just like, holy shit, both of you guys, just, you know what I mean? So I found that I tried mixing for a band. I did like the Intronaut thing, a couple years back, but it's like, I'm good at doing my own thing, but I either make other bands sound like my production or I just resent it. Plus there's no money in it either, right? It's like if you, okay, so a mix, maybe I'll get paid, when I was doing it, I might get paid $5 grand to do a mix. That's my $5 grand chord. but they pay you $5,000 for 2 weeks under the assumption that's going to take you 2 weeks to do it, and then I'll spend 2 months. You know, and then by the end of it, you're not even breaking even, not even close, because I want it to be a certain way. So now I get asked a lot to produce, and I say no to it all of it. Thank God. Another question? Yes, in the back.
What do you need advice for recording big guitars with low budget?
Yeah, there's a ton of different. Okay, let me start by saying the source sounds are one thing. If you're using digital representations of amps, I mean, any of these will work. Like, I mean, I just sort of brought this in today, and I got close to my goal with the Kemper and the Helix. In the DAW world, say you're using GarageBand or Logic even, because Logic X for $200 is absolutely a brilliant program. So let's say you've got $200. They've got Choke was so good, Logic X. In Logic, they've got a bunch of guitar sounds, which I've gotten great sounds with. In fact, you remember Catch 33 by Meshuggah? They used the built-in guitar synth or guitar patch for Cubase. Like, that's the sound. So you can get it from what you need, right? I think the Fortin one is really cool. It's like, you know, $150 or something, and the Positive Grid makes a good one as well. So once you get a sound that you like, I do two things to it in the master bus. I will take the high pass and the low pass. So I'll scoop out everything in the guitar from basically not 60, maybe 50 down. Now what that does is you're not really going to hear it, but that information is still present, whether or not you can hear it, and it makes the speakers move even if you don't hear it. So by getting rid of all that low information, it makes room for the bass. And then the top end, you might get a really sort of satisfying sizzle in the top end, but I highly suggest taking the low pass and just bringing that back just a touch as well, because what ends up happening with that frequency is it interrupts the keyboards and the cymbals. And then the last thing I'll say about getting a guitar sound is what is a gratifying guitar sound on its own very often doesn't work in the mix. So one thing that you'd want to, in my opinion, remember is that mid-range is your friend. So, you know, and the least amount of like equalization you can do to it, I think ultimately ends up sounding better, because in the long run, equalization is like you're basically manipulating the phase. Right? And so if you've got everything that's sort of in phase with each other and you start doing extreme equalization to it, you're going to find that just the overall spectrum just gets a little smaller, right? There's my, yeah. Yeah. Oh, have I got the thing for you? Okay. SonarWorks Reference 4. Yeah. And Waves NX, those two plugins. What SonarWorks does, and I used it for mixing empath, it's a reference microphone. You put it up against a speaker, makes a pink noise. Put up the second one, makes a pink noise. Tells you how far away your speakers are. It says sit where you're listening, put the thing there, makes a reference noise, and then it gives you 40 different positions around the room. And what it does is it does a room analysis of where the deficiencies are in your room, and then you put that plug in at the end of your chain, and it does an equalization counter EQ that flattens the response. So what you're hearing coming out of your speaker in the room is like regardless of where your deficiencies in the room lie. And then you mix, and it's, dude, immediately you're just like, oh, there's not enough mid-range in the bass, there's not enough kick, there's too much low end on the kick. And then when you're done and you're printing your mix, you bypass that plug-in. It's amazing. And Waves NX as well, they've got a little headset thing. It's like maybe $40. And the program, I don't know how much it costs, like maybe $80. And what it does is in your headphones, it gives you a virtual recording room, which does the same thing. They've got profiles for all sorts of like popular headphones, like the Bose ones, which are great, you know. But it flattens the frequency response in the same way. And the headset mic reacts to your camera. So when you turn your head, the frequency, it's like they're speakers, you know. And both those programs have been of huge help to me. And so I ended up mixing the record on the plane, in hotel rooms, and it ended up being, you know, I'm more satisfied with this mix than any record that I've mixed, right? So those are two things. And that really helps at the low end, because I didn't realize that I'm actually pretty good at mixing. And when I realized that my room was just giving me a bunch of weird information back, I was like, oh, fuck. It's not like I'm fundamentally incapable of mixing. It's just my room has way too much bass, or not enough bass even, right? Yeah. A couple more questions.
Got a couple from the guys watching. So we've got one.
We got people watching?
Yeah, live stream. Live stream.
Oh, fuck. Oh, no. Hang on 2 seconds. Just give me a second.
Hey, is that a Strandberg telly?
Cool, yeah, I'm glad we're live streaming. That's great. So, hi, guys. Holy shit, man.
So we've got one from Johnny Gibbs. How satisfied were you with the Plovdiv being the final big show for DTP?
I haven't considered it until you asked. Fine, I think. The only problem that I had with the Plovdiv DVD is when we did the mix down to MP3, what ended up happening is the drums got super loud, and I was really embarrassed of how it sounded on YouTube. That was my only thought on Plovdiv. But I think that the actual product, specifically the surround sound, is excellent, actually. Yeah, and I think as a swan song for the DTP, I mean, yeah, it's cool. I mean, I guess I'm not super romantic in terms of looking back on things, you know? Yeah. We're live streaming, eh? That's great. I'm happy about that. I mean, I think that's really cool.
We've got another one from Toby Sykes.
Wait, before you do, I during this, I had definite thoughts where I was like, thank God it's only these people here. Like, really.
But just
Oh my
imagine how
God.
many people are watching you not wearing trousers.
Fuck that. Holy cow.
In the
Okay, get
pajamas.
over it, Dev. Watch this. I'm going to get over it. Watch this. It's going to be great. What was the question?
Hey.
Any visuals or theatrics planned for the Empath Band Tour?
Not yet. I think at this point, it's still in its formative stages of trying to put together people. I'm auditioning a ton of people, and I want a real specific type of band. The only person that's in it for real now is Mike. Right, Keneally. So he's going to be in it, and I think that there's a certain aspect that can be pursued. Okay, yeah, there's two ideas that I have. It's going to be one of two things. It's either going to be a completely white stage with white gear and a blue empath on the floor, and everybody wears black, and the screen on the back will just be like varying degrees of environments. So either be sunny or rainy or something. I like that because it's Spartan. And then the other idea was we make the stage like Margaritaville. Honestly. So we have like inflatable palm trees and a cabana, and there's like, and the kick drums have got bamboo on it, and you know, and everybody's wearing like Hawaiian shirts and shorts and like, you know, fisherman's hats, and then we go out and play brutal crazy metal, right? Like,
Do that.
Yes.
really?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yes.
Thanks. Okay.
Yeah.
Yes.
Done.
So we have some ideas for the live show, and I think it's going to be like sort of a Margaritaville. I went on vacation a couple years back with my family, and I realized it's like, why haven't I done this before? This is the best. And so ever since then, you'll notice on Empath as well when you get the record, structurally it's very weird, but the songs, you'll find it's like, why did he just stop there? But every time I stop, you go to the beach. So I'll give you an example. So I can't play too much, but sure I can. Doesn't make a fucking difference. So let's see. But there's this one part of this song, Borderlands, where it gets super intense and then just stops and goes to the beach, right? And then there's like steel drip. Wait. Right. Yeah, the beach. All right, so. Right, beach. Right, so it's like. So it's this big rock show with like orchestras. And there's like audiences screaming and there's like air horns. But then while I was recording it, I was like, oh, I'm sick of this. And so I was like, we need to go to the beach. So it's just like, but it's just.
Brilliant.
You know what I mean? And the record starts on the beach, and there's this one part of the record as well where it's like this 20-minute long song, and it's brutal, and there's this, like, I've got this idea of like orcs, you know, and battle elephants and all this, and like just super scary shit. And then at the end, the orcs are walking away, it's this big metal breakdown and all this stuff, and then the orcs are saying "Selfish Messiah," like, you know, like like, how dare you not? But in my mind's eye, I'm sitting on a lawn chair, like at a beach with like a coconut drink, and they're walking by me, like all kicking rocks and stuff. And then it changes from selfish messiah that they're to women on a beach going, try the papaya, right? So like the song itself is like, you know, it's like so it's just. It's brutal, right? And then at the end, they're going, right. So they say selfish messiah, right? So wait. And they're like lumbering away, but I'm watching them from a lawn chair. Like they're like the war elephants, and then the ladies come and they're like, try the papaya, right? And they're steel drums. Right? So
That's brilliant.
It's kind of raw deconstruction almost.
no, it's serious in a way that deconstruction wasn't. Even though they've got that, it's like rooted in something like deconstruction. There was still sort of a sense of emotional detachment to it by making it into a story. And the story on this is more about the fact that things are totally brutal, but you have to get through it. You just don't kill yourself. Like that's what the record's about. It's the whole thing is like an anti-suicide sentiment in a way. Like I know so many people, like I'm sure we all do, that are like really depressed and like suicidal and all these sorts of things. And to make a record that is rooted in that sort of like cathartic release, like if you're gonna be brutal, be fucking brutal. If you're gonna be, you know, if you're on the beach, go to the beach, right? It's like, but the ups and downs of it are such that at the end, the intention of the record is to leave people saying, well, you can get through it. It's brutal, but you know, I won't give up if you don't, right? And so it's like, in a sense, deconstruction had more of like a metaphor I was trying to achieve out of it. It's like, well, it's futile to try and deconstruct the infinite. That just, it's like stupid. But with this one, there's much less about that. It's like, please don't fucking kill yourself. Right?
Very important message.
I agree.
Yeah.
Especially when you know so many people that are like,
God,
oh,
yeah.
fuck, man, like just do it, you know?
Yeah.
And do that. And the other, I never know how to address that. Yeah, because it's like male, female, and, transsexual and transgender. And it's like, I never know where the gender things go at this point. So I'll just be like, whoever you are, just don't kill yourself, right? Like, and if you're bummed out, call somebody, because everybody's kind of suffering through the same shit, right? So in a sense, Empath was made. Even the emotional component of it with the name Empath, it's about, there's so much divisiveness in the world and politically, and like, with all the bullshit that goes on here and in North America and China and everywhere, there's like this sense that the lack of communication comes from this kind of public sentiment in a way that that feeling for other people is like a liability in a way. But at the same time, I think it's also something that we have had to adopt, just because every time you turn on the news, it's so hard to not absorb the horror that makes media so much money. It's like you turn on the news and kids being killed, and like animals in the rainforest and the water and the Arctic, and you're just like, fuck. So in a sense, just for like self-defense, you've got to sort of protect yourself by closing off that empathetic part of our nature. But at the same time, it's that same mechanism that allows us in a lot of ways to not be able to see points of views that are like different from our own, because ultimately it's like everybody's fighting a battle and everybody's got something different. So that kind of as an underpinning for the theme of Empath ended up adding credence to why there's so many dynamic shifts on the record. It's like brutal, mellow, funny, silly, stupid, prog, meditation, sad, whatever. It's like, it's less about the music and more about the intention of it. And again, the intention of this was like, I don't want it to be false. I don't want it to be like, everything's gonna be fine. We're all okay. It's more like, dude, things are fucked, but we're gonna be okay. Just like, you just gotta get through it. And I think it's really, That was not a cry. I do not. Someone told me the other day that a 40-year-old man cry or a 40-year-old cry is like it wells up, because when you were a kid, you're just like, oh, see, bro, get with me, or whatever, right? And but as 40, you go, and that's like it. It comes out, and that's it. And you're just like, oh, what's that? Oh shit! I got fucking football. You know.
Yeah, seeing my grandpa cry for the first time was the most unnerving thing, just because he'd been so stoic for his entire life. It seems really unhealthy to live like that.
To be stoic.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I think it's also, it's like, you know, there's a certain point where I think it can become a liability to open yourself up too much as well, right? So I think that ultimately the learning that went into this record was really in line with the midlife crisis. Like, I really firmly believe that. 46 years old, and I got a bunch of shitty tattoos lately, and like just things that I would never expect to do again. I was just like, oh my God, I exercising, and I get a pectoral muscle, and then I'm wearing tight shirts, you know what I mean? You know what I mean, walking around. But it's like, it was rooted in something that I started recognizing as being like, oh, I'm getting old, and my parents are getting old, and my son's turning into a teen, and it's like, there's this, you know, you don't want to think that you're that connected to mortality, and then when it becomes obvious, it's like, well, I got to do all these things now, you know what I mean? I think that's why, you know, some people like, well, I got to go get a fancy car and like, you know, go try and impregnate somebody half my age because, you know, that adds, you know, virility to my aging wang or something, right? Like, but I think ultimately, for me, it manifested as making a super fucking expensive, weird record. Thank you. And also recognizing that I've been intellectualizing my emotions for so many years that it had become to the point where I was separate from the things in my life that were most important to me. It's like unconditional feelings towards your parents or your friends or your kids. The term that I thought was interesting is called decathect. And what that was is consciously removing emotional attachments from people, places, or things in fear of it going away. So you end up like closing yourself off because they're going to die. Or like, I really love this guitar, but I know I can't afford it, so fuck this guitar. You know what I mean? So I think that became part of my process with this, where I was like, okay, when I go to a therapist or when I talk to friends, I mean, I can intellectualize who I am and what I'm feeling and where it's coming from, to the point where I can even bring it back to, it's like, and that stems from this time when I was a kid, when there was like something that I witnessed that was really traumatic. But on a certain level, I don't feel like I'm actually participating in it. So the idea of empath was to be able to use even that as a term to rationalize that being highly sensitive, I'm not fully like an empath, I'm certainly not, but I'm very much a sensitive person, is something that I think if you could find ways to protect yourself from having that come out in ways that are inappropriate, then you could ultimately have that as a strength more so than a weakness, right? So anyway, yeah, guitar. So it's open C and right. Another